Supple up and welcome back. My name is Pupple Up and welcome to part 2 of my hair rigging, weight painting, and porting tutorial for Honey Select. Alrighty, so since part 1, I did do a little bit more work. I did the liberty of adding the vertex groups and naming to the last of the hair, our back 4 portions. Just so that you guys wouldn't have to see me do the tedious work of that. Right now we've got back R2. And I told you guys that weight painting for more than 3 bones, it's basically the same thing, but I still want you guys to see it in action. That way you can kind of understand about how much space you want to leave for each bone. So we're going to use our draw tool, turn off auto normalize, and once again make sure that we're painting the top just for the root. Actually, we'll want to probably zoom in a little closer. That way my brush isn't so big compared to the hair we're using it on. I like to keep my lines a little straighter. I find that helps. Doesn't always work out. You also do want to make sure that when you've got more than one layer to what you're weight painting, that you're making sure to turn your mesh around and get all the layers. Now, it might actually behoove me better to use the viewport shading as wireframe, because that does tend to do a little bit better when it comes to cutting through the different layers. And actually then let's go back to our back R2 bone and make sure that we did hit our desired portions. So yeah, we're actually looking really good now, which means we can click our auto normalize, go back to the root, and zoom out and blur this sucker. And you'll notice how both of our center bones end up blurred to yellowness with how much we're smoothing out the weights, which, you know, is perfectly fine, because there is still plenty of influence there for when we go back to the armature, when we go in pose mode, and we start to pose. I do usually find that my first bone does get a little kinky, more than perhaps some of the other bones. It's just a matter of testing and smoothing it out. I'm actually not happy with that yet, so let's smooth a little bit more. And make sure to smooth as well from the root. And if we go back to our armature, we'll notice that looks a lot better. Second one, nice smooth. Third one, also nice smooth. It's usually that first bone that gives me trouble. Going over here. And yeah, I already have my things here. It's just a matter of remembering to go back to draw and make sure that you're selecting the root first. spend a little extra time this time. Whoops. With the root and first bone to see if we can just manage to convince it not to be quite so kinky initially. Some nice smooth weights. The blur tool is honestly my best friend. Aha, we have issues. See, this is what happens when I don't check. But we actually want, let's, oh, a little bit too much space here. We want to make sure that this all the way down here is definitely all red. Let's go back to our blur tool. Now, chances are I'm gonna forget when we go to our next section for me to lower the weight again. And I'm gonna startle myself. Actually, I'm gonna lower the weight now and remove the influence down here, because we do not need the 1.1 bone to be able to influence all the way at the ends of the tips of the hair. That'll just be silly. Okay, but we're actually gonna make sure that we're removing a little bit of the influence there, and it's not gonna appear anywhere else because we want just the root on the tips here. Back to our armature. And this is the... see? Still. Oop. That's because our root bone decided to go everywhere. Let's just... a little bit of extra love. Back to our posing. See, and it's always the first part. The rest of everything looks gorgeous. Except for what? No, that should actually be fine, especially if we set it to where it looks like the strands. That'll be fine. So, clear user transforms. Hide. Unhide. Start with the root. We are coming from the right side. Draw. I usually keep it around halfway for my brush. But generally gives me some pretty nice let's see, now this time I'm remembering. Haha. Gives me some pretty nice results. Yeah, we can use our arrow keys to actually check our starting gradient, as long as we're in this little cube here. So normalize, use our blur tool, smooth things out nice. It's always kind of also nice because with the way that the weight paints go, it's a nice rainbow. So let's test our paint here. And yes, it is absolutely important. See? It's important to test the paint for every single bunch of hair that you're working on. Can't skip one or else you'll get one strand that looks way messier than the others. That's almost more indicative of issues. Okay. Why is their influence all the way up here from that bone? We don't want that. We're gonna get rid of it. So, whoop. Back to our armature. That's much better. Let's see. You kind of get the hang of it. Honestly, a lot of it is practice. And I've mentioned that in other tutorials that practice is really important. Learning the tools that you're using is really, really important. And repetition, too. I mean, this will be my 5th hair now, and I know. 5th, that doesn't sound like a lot. Some people catch on to things a little bit easier than others. I came from a 2D art background, so making the jump was not as difficult for me as it will be for some other people, and that's okay. Learning anything takes time, and some people, it just takes less time than others. That doesn't mean that any individual can't learn. It just means it's going to take a little longer for some people compared to others. But practicing will always, always help with that. Don't know what my cursor thought it was doing there. Okay, and this is actually the last strand, and we have a really nice, smooth kind of here. So let's switch and pose. It's still got the kinks, but that's okay. We should know by now how to fix that. So. Yee. We even got kinks on part 2 here. There's actually something I want to do. And that's when we go in here, smoothing out our weight paints. Something I actually want to do is take a little bit. We're gonna make my radius a lot smaller. Just want to get these and too much still. Individual vertices on the root. That way they stay close to the scalp and don't poke through kind of weird when everything else is bending, because they're supposed to be coming down from a little lower on, but still connected to the scalp. So let's smooth this out now with our little bit of additional weight paint. You're too high. It's okay to tell the weight paint no. So as some of you probably know by now, I have a girlfriend, and she's in the room with me while I'm doing all of this, and apparently saying that it was okay to tell the weight paint no made her absolutely die. She had to cover her mouth so y'all wouldn't hear her laughing at me in the background. She's angry at me now because I'm gonna make her laugh. But as you guys could see, that was the last bit of weight paint that we needed to do and smooth, and now it will all look fantastic when we get it into Unity, which is our next step. And we're actually going to go into Unity and see what we can do there, because one of the important things to do with hair is dynamic bones. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that once you have your dynamic bones tool. So we're going to click everything. We want all of it. And actually, before we do that, there is one thing that I will want to do. Actually, a couple things. So we're going to select everything. We're going to Control A, apply all. Don't be me. Don't forget to apply all and wonder why your armature isn't working in the first place. Already covered that problem in part 1. We're going to add an empty. Just plain axes. Of course, it populated all the way down here, but we want it in our collection. It really doesn't matter what we call the empty. I'm going to name it, this is hair 25, so I'm just going to call it hair 25, because we don't know what we're going to call this hair yet, and we're going to put everything, including the armature, inside of hair 25. And then we're going to select that too, and for good measure, we're going to go into object mode and apply all one last time. Ooh, almost forgot the scale. So yeah. Apply. Now that we have this done, we can go in and export as an FBX. So it's not showing the export screen, but you want to make sure that you're exporting with a 0.01 scale. That's start. I'm going to name my file Nikki Hair. This one was 25, so it's just Nikki Hair 25 .fbx. We want to limit to selected objects because we have all of our objects that we want to export highlighted here and nothing else. Not even our mannequin head, which helped us so much in the start. Apply scalings all local, Z forward, negative Z forward, and Y up. And then we're going to just export our FBX. So, once we have our FBX, we can head over to Unity! Our fresh brand spankin' Unity. I actually have all of my shaders in here that I already like to use. And we're going to create a new folder. This is Nikki 25, because it was hair 25. So we're going to go in here. In our computer, what you don't see is me going through and looking for my FBX here. Where did it go? Nikki Hair 25. We're going to drag and drop it into our folder here. Once it's done importing the small assets, here it is! Woo! It's sideways. Don't worry about that. So first things first, we want to make sure the scale factor is 100. We're going to click here. It's going to ask us to apply. We're going to do that. And then we can drag and drop it into our hierarchy, which will make it appear on our viewport. So we can confirm that it includes our armature and everything. Yay! Everything shares one material. That's normal. I have... Ignore the stuff that isn't part of the hair textures. Where's the hair texture? Where's the hair texture? I use hair D10 as my main texture. I do that because it's a nice basic texture. And of course, you need to make sure it's HS standard. Doesn't that look much nicer now? It's a nice basic monochrome texture. That way, any of the users can color it however they want, even though all of the textures from where I get my hairs are modular. I could use color 10, I could use color 1, I could use color 25. They all fit the same way on the hairs. So, because even I forget things. Let me grab my super duper handy notebook. Blue's Clues, please don't sue. And make sure that I've got all my stuff. So first things first, because I am making this a hair as an accessory, we need to build the hierarchy. So we are going to take Nikki Hair 25 is gonna be what we end up naming it as our animator. So let's create an empty. This one will be called n.chousei, n_chose. And we're actually going to create another empty inside of that. That's n_move. These are what make the accessories tick, as you were. And we're going to actually break our prefab already by taking everything and putting it into everything except our animator, except our original. We're going to put it into n_move. Then we're going to select all of the meshes specifically and click update when off screen. So now that that's done, we've got part of our material done. But at this point, if you've gotten this far, you should know how textures work. I like to use my detail normal. Just this one. As you notice, it adds just a nice little bit. I like to tile it. Oh, not that way. No, that's not the way I like to tile. This one. I like to tile it this way, so you can actually see a little bit of geometry in each strand of hair. I think it looks really slick that way. And then we also have a specular map that just gives it a nice little bit of depth to it. It's nice. But now we get to work our magic. We get to do dynamic bones. So we're going to go into our armature and select, as opposed to root, because I like to make all of my dynamic bones a little bit different. We are going to use the bone chains themselves. So select the start of the bone chain. So it's just this one. Then do add component. You've got your dynamic bone script in. It's under add component, dynamic bone. The root should be, and forgive me, I have a lot of things, but the root should just be, in this case, bun 1. Now to explain what each of these settings does, because right now they're all kind of set icky. We don't like that yet. So update rate. You'll never touch it. Don't worry about it. The main things that we touch our damping, elasticity, stiffness, and inert. So, damping. The higher the damping rate, the longer it takes for the movement to slow and stop. So we actually want our damping to be kind of a medium number. Elasticity, the lower number, is it springs back to the original pose slower. So think damping is how long the wiggle lasts. Elasticity is how strong the wiggle maintains itself. Elasticity is kind of like a rubber band. A really elastic rubber band will snap back easier than a rubber band that doesn't have a lot of elasticity. So we're going to keep that to a medium-low number. Stiffness is the influence of the initial movement. So a low stiffness means that it moves easier, as opposed to a high stiffness, it'll take a lot more oomph to make it move. We're going to set that to sort of a lower medium. Inert is similar to stiffness. I'm just going to set that to kind of a medium number for now. And now we get to test the dynamic bone setting. So we're going to click our animator. We're going to press the play button. That will send us to the game screen. Oh my gosh, I just noticed that. Here, let me... Oh, it's not letting me adjust quite the way I want to. I apologize for the massive weird stuff in the background, if that's actually recording. Just focus on what's in the Unity screen. It initially takes us to this game screen. No, we'll just go back to scene. And then we wiggle our mesh. As you can see, our bun has sort of a cute little wiggle. Doesn't last for very long though, so let me go back into our bun, and we can actually change things. We can also change the distribution curve. So I have a couple custom curves, but I don't think we really need a curve. Do we? Do we need a curve? So I'm actually just gonna grab some basic curves here. Let's test again. Yeah, with only one bone, the curves really don't do much. It's more when you have the additional bones. Let's try to check out our damping. Now it wiggles for longer, but that's not necessarily what we want. So let's return our damping to a more medium. Let's lower our stiffness a little, and let's increase our elasticity. See, that actually is the opposite of what we want. So let's play around with our settings. That seems about right. So let's remember what we've got here. About half, about 0.7, about half, about half. Because as soon as we unpress play, it resets it. So about half. So it's really low. Let's move on to our next one. Add component. Dynamic bone. So I actually have some hairs that I've already completed here, which is kind of nice because I can go into their armature and say, here, I have my settings from my Gothic Knight Curls bangs, and I can actually copy the component. So I can copy all the values to the component and then bring it back to, say, my bangs, and then paste component values. So if you'll notice, I've got really high elasticity here. I've got medium damping, medium stiffness, low inert. But there is one thing, it's got the wrong root, because we need this bangs R1. So now it should have the correct thing. So when we press play and we wiggle our hair around, going back to scene, it actually moves with the mesh. Now, bangs you really don't need to move much, so I'm gonna go back and I'm going to assign, we can actually go from here where it says transform. Paste component is new. This one is our bangs L1. And then paste component is new. Go to bangs C. Play again. Back to scene. And now they all move. Well, except for the center, which means I picked the wrong bangs C1. That's why we test. Because I picked bangs C, not bangs C1. That would explain a lot. Test again. You get really good at moving between these two screens. See, now they're all moving. And notice they're also moving more at the end of the bone chain as opposed to moving at the top of the hair. That's because we did our very important, we waited to the root as opposed to waiting waiting immediately to the bone up here. Otherwise you'd get the whole thing wiggling, and we really didn't want that. As for the length, let me go back to the I toggle this all the time, but let's then steal more weight paint from our Gothic Knight Curls. Actually, let's steal paint from the shaggy long hair, because the sides of the shaggy long hair were a little bit closer to the length of this. You notice I had a lot. This was the one that was a lot of different layers. So let me go with the bangs L, and I will just copy the component values from that. Remember, folks, work smarter, not harder. And this one, if you notice again, the damping is about medium. It gets lower towards the ends. I actually think I should flip that for this. But you'll see. So we're gonna paste the component as new. Let's try flipping this. No, we'll flip it like that. The elasticity is pretty high. Remember that the lower, well, you guys can figure things out and work on it that way. Stiffness is about medium, inert's pretty low. So we need to make sure that we change the root to back L1.1. Just back. That's higher. Back L1.1. And we're actually gonna make this our new initial because I changed that. So let's copy that component. Paste this as new. Then switch. This is 2.1. Paste component is new. This one's gonna be R1.1. And if you notice, I'm specifically grabbing the ones with the little pages. Those help you tell what's a mesh and what's a bone. Because a bone is considered a if you look real close, it says game object. They're considered game objects. Actually, everything's considered a game object, but I always pick the ones with the page, and it never gives me any problem. And 2.1. Okay. We are now ready to test this. Back to scene. Grab one of the things that contains everything. And look at that wiggle. Pretty nice, huh? So from here, we can decide what our name is gonna be. So I always start my names with pup. That way y'all can know who made it. And I kind of like to make the names a little artsy-fartsy. But this time I think we're gonna be a little bit more basic. It's a short hair with the top in a bun. So... I'm horrible at figuring out. I should have done this ahead of time. We're gonna call it the bouncy bun. That works. Go back into our basic here. Bring it down. And now it's our new prefab. Gonna make a new name for it. The asset bundle is just gonna be called Pup Bouncy Bun. Oop. Enter. You want to make sure that when you're entering anything in this little asset bundle screen, you have to press enter. Then Unity 3D, and we're ready to build our asset bundle. We want to make sure, however, that we're building our asset bundle to our Kara, our character folder. So click build. It takes a little bit to make sure that it has all the data compressed and whatnot. And now we move on to our next section, which will be in our Illusionsoft specific utility, which is kind of what helps make the item actually appear in the game. We're going to go into our SB3 utility UGI. So let me set that up and I will see you there. Mostly because while I set up Unity, I didn't remember to set up SB3. So there we go. Now we have our SB3. So this is our basic SB3 setup. We don't have anything loaded in yet. That's okay. You're going to want to find, first of all, where your asset bundle populated within your Honey Select folder. So let me go plumb the depths. I just have in AppData Kara a folder named Puppelup. That's where all my stuff goes. So I'm going to drag and drop the Unity 3D file that we just made into our SP3 utility GUI. And actually, while I'm there, I'm going to go back into AppData. There's a section called List. So I'm going to cheat a little bit because I already have previous list files that I've completed. So I'm just going to grab one of my other ones in AppData List Kara Custom, and I'm going to drag it in here too. So first things first, though, we want to select our newly made hair. We're going to open it up in this screen, open it up a little bit more until we get to see, you know, all of our meshes here. I'm actually going to grab and move for a moment because that's our easiest way to apply changes recursively. We're going to set the layer to A, which in the game is the Kara layer, C-H-A-R-A, which helps with determining how things render, if I recall correctly. And we are going to make the tag 4E2D. Now, 4E2D is what lets the program know that you can use the color selector in the game to change the item's color, which obviously, since we want this hair to be colorable, we want to do that. That is all you have to do here in this particular section. We already have all our mono behaviors set up in Unity with the dynamic bones, so we don't have to worry about that. We can literally just go File, Save Unity 3D. So I'm going to click that, and that overwrites our Unity 3D asset bundle with the proper information that we want in it. So that brings us to our next thing, the list file. Everybody thinks list files are super scary. I really don't think they are scary at all, because they're really not. Once you have a place like I have my notebook where I've written down what each of the pieces mean, it's like cracking the code. So this first thing here is the item ID. Breezy Ponytail was, if I recall, the second hair I did. So if this one is 333444564, that would make the Gothic Curls 565, the Shaggy Hair 566, which means I can make this 567. This first thing is what HS Resolve More Slot ID uses, so you want to just make sure it's a unique number. That's it. If it's not, the resolver can figure it out and automatically assign a new number, but I would pick a couple initial digits that you like and then just count up from there. So this second one is the list orders. So if you have a whole bunch of things in one group, it's what order they appear in the list in the game. So we don't really have to mess with that. This third one is going to be the in-game name. So it's what it says in the picker when you're choosing what your character is wearing. So we're going to rename this Bouncy Bun for consistency's sake. The fourth item is always going to be abdata, because that's the main file path that your mod now uses. Then here in the fifth is the remainder of the file path. So we called it bouncybun.unity3d, because when we saved it and put it into Unity, we made the asset bundle in abdata, Kara, our folder, which in my case is Puppelup, and then the name of the Unity file that has our item in it, which was bouncybun.unity3d. You want to make sure that it's exactly the file path, which actually makes it really easy because we have it right here up right now alongside our list file. So let's move on. So if that was our fifth cube, this would be our sixth, which is the male animator. So remember how I said this was our animator name? So that's what we're gonna put in. So this is for if we want guys to use it, which I want it to be unisex. So I'm gonna put the animator name in there. And then here's the animator name for if girls use it. There, we've got our animator names. The eighth one, just ignore it. Just ignore it. The ninth cell is if it's an accessory. It's the bone the accessory is attached to. In the case of a hair, it's AP_head. And then all the rest of it, we don't have to worry about for accessories. They're for other kinds of clothes. So with that, we want to file, save Unity 3D as, because obviously, oh, that's actually the wrong thing. We want to make sure that it's our list. File, save as, because we want to save this as a new file as opposed to replace our old file. And I'm going to name this pup bouncy bun list, and then save it. And that's it. If we've done everything correct, we'll be able to open up Honey Select, find our item in the accessories menu under head accessories, and equip it to our character. I'm not going to do that portion during this tutorial, mostly because we know what kind of program Honey Select is, and I don't want YouTube making this tutorial hard to find. In any case, we're good. If you've gotten this far, you did it! So, with that, let's wrap up. If you have any questions, you should know where to find the Discord, and myself or any of the other modders should be happy to assist you. Take care, dear listener, and good luck modding.